All right, welcome back. We are MDEV1004, that's Mobile APIs and Frameworks, in the summer 2024 semester at Georgian, and it's week 1, part 3 of our broadcast and recording together. And in the last part, we talked about version control, and we actually finished setting up most of our environment. And now we're finally going to get into putting together a little API. And the first part of it is using something like the express generator. We're going to start with something as opposed to nothing. And the express generator is a scaffold. That's what it is. It allows us to kind of quickly create a structure for our project, but you're going to see we're going to modify it heavily, heavily, all right, as we get moving. Okay, let's do this first. And this is part of your in-class exercise 1, which is required for this week. Okay, so again, I'm going to just switch to the Mac, so you guys can see it on the Mac side. And so if you're using a Mac, you can see what it looks like. I'm just going to maximize here. There we go. And what I want to do here is I'm going to pull up Visual Studio. And what did I do? I wanted to scale to fit. There we go. And in Visual Studio right now, we don't have a project, right? Right now, Visual Studio is not pointing to anything. Right, so I'm going to close this welcome screen here, and it's going to be blank. So inside of our Finder, what I want to do is I want to go to my desktop, which is where I'm going to have everything. And I have some previous stuff in here from before. But I'm going to make a brand new folder. Let's do that. You do this with me, please. So I'm going to call this Georgian. Yay! Right? Inside of the folder, you can call it whatever you like. Inside of the folder, I want to put in the name of the course, which of course would be MDEV1004. So this is what I would do if I was setting it up. That's my structure. Inside MDEV1004, you might have something like this. I'm going to put a folder called ICES. So ICE with an S, okay? ICES. This is where I want to create my repository. And what I'm going to be doing is for every in-class exercise, I'm going to put them all inside of the ICES folder. Okay, so you're only going to share one repository with me, not 12. I imagine if there's 25 of you or 27 of you, imagine if every single week you gave me a repository link. It's too much, too crazy, right? And that means you're creating repositories every week. You don't have to do that. One repository for the entire semester for your in-class exercises. For your applications, for your assignment 1, 2, 3, 4, those are requiring different repositories. But for your in-class exercises, one. Okay, so now that we have ICES, what I want to do is I want to kind of go in here into ICES, right? And I want to pull just ICES into Visual Studio Code. So I'm just going to drag and drop ICES in here like this, okay? And if I do that, what happens is I get the ICES folder in here. I don't need the welcome screen, thank you very much, right? But here's my ICES folder, okay? I want you guys to bring up your command prompt. I'm just going to take this away so we don't see this. Go over here. I'm going to bring up my command prompt. To bring up the command prompt in Visual Studio Code, you can certainly go to Terminal up here at the top and click New Terminal. Okay, you can do that. Or what you can also do is Control Backtick. Control Backtick brings it up. Control Backtick. Backtick is the key underneath your escape key. Control Backtick. Control. Right? Yeah, so it's Control Backtick. So if you actually look there, if you actually go to your terminal, notice that New Terminal can also be Shift. It says Control Shift Backtick is what it has here for the Mac. So all the commands are right here. Okay? Control Shift Backtick. Yeah. But either way, you can bring up your terminal by pressing New Terminal. Okay, so at the top, if you go to the terminal menu and you go to New Terminal, you can do that too. Yeah. All right, so once you have this, what I want to do is I want to do that first repository. I'm going to do this. Ready? Git init. And what it says is I initialize a brand new repository in the ICES folder. In the ICES folder, a brand new repository. Okay? Now, let's talk about this for a second. The ICES folder has a brand new repository. Okay, and what this is all the in-class exercises are going to be here, right? Now we may need to make a live link sometimes. We may need to have a second repository that I'm going to be asking you for, but that's public typically. This one is private that we're going to be making together. So first I made this one, get init, okay? And notice that inside of this folder, it created an empty hidden.git folder. That's what it did. It created an empty .git folder. So now anything inside the ISIS folder is going to be tracked. That's what I'm doing right now, okay? Next, what I want to do is go back to my Finder, right? And inside my Finder, you can see that I have nothing inside of it. So I want to right-click on my ISIS folder, and I'm going to make a brand new folder again. So again, you might see something different than me. For example, inside of your ISIS folder, if you might have that window that you can see 3 parts to your Finder. I only show 1. That's just the way I do my thing. Okay, you can reset your Finder to make it look like whatever, right? So again, inside, I'm going to double click in my ISIS folder, and I'm going to make a new folder in there called ICE1. Okay, and this is where I want to put my Express generator here. Okay. So ICE1 is a folder inside of your ISIS folder. And don't do this. I'm going to show you what I want. And tomorrow, maybe next week, we'll do another folder, and that'll be called ICE2, right? And ICE3, and ICE4, and ICE5. It'll all be in the same folder, right? But for now, all we need is ICE1. I'm just going to remove ICE2. And actually, what we can do is we can remove both of them, right? So if I remove both ICE2 and ICE1, and I'll show you how this works, we can actually generate the folders for us. So let's move those to trash. There we go. Okay, and what I want to do, right, is I want to use my command prompt here, my terminal, right? So I want to be able to generate my folder. Here's how you do that. I can use the Express itself, because if you've installed Express Generator, you can do Express. And if I do -- help, right, you can see that Express has a bunch of things that you can use. Let's take a look. So Express, if I was going to pull my terminal up a little higher here we go. You can see that when I did Express -- help, it gave me all this. So -- version gives me the version number. -e gives me EJS, which is the view engine that we can use. Or we can use Pug, or Handlebars, or Hogan, or we can also specify that there's no view engine, right? Which for us is what's going to happen. Not today, but we won't be using a view engine because we're making an API, right? A view engine actually creates views for us. For today, and only for today, we're going to have a view engine, just to make so we can see some stuff, okay? So what I want to do now is I want to use EJS. So I'm going to say Express space -EJS, and then space the directory name, which is going to be ICE1. Let's try it together. Ready? So again, I'm going to clear this, and we're going to say Express -EJS space ICE1. And I'm inside the ISIS folder for me to do this. And if I press enter, it's actually going to say, if it's a problem, it'll say unknown. What did I say? Oh, view is equal to EJS. I'll be okay. So let's try this again. So we'll try it again. We'll say Express, and then view. So again, just to reiterate, if I go to help again, it says view is equal to EJS, right? View is equal to EJS, right? So -- view or -v, right, is equal to EJS. Let's try it again. So if I, or I can say a -e. So if I say something like, Express -e, and then ICE1. Let's try that. And then what it did was it created ICE1, and it made a scaffold for me inside of the ICE1 folder. So if you actually look at it here in Visual Studio Code, you can see that there's a bunch of other folders it created. Are you with me? Did you make this? Did you do what I did? If you did, thumbs up. If you didn't, let me know, because we have to move on from this. This is part of your in-class exercise 1, which is worth 4% of your final grade, right? So please make sure you get it done. Okay? No one is good? Guys, you have to communicate with me or else I can't help you. So if you're good, thumbs up. You can do that on the reactions in Zoom. If you're not good, let me know. Okay. I'm assuming everyone's good. No one's saying anything. So let's move on. So now what I can do is I have ICE 1, but I want to work on ICE 1. I don't want to work on ICEs anymore. ICEs is the containing folder. ICE 1 is what I'm working on today. Okay? And what I want to do is in the ICE 1 folder, I want to add in a well, actually, I don't need to do anything here. I can do it in the ICEs folder too, but let's do it in the ICE 1 folder. How this works is I'm going to go back to Finder, and I'm going to drag and drop my ICE 1 folder inside of Visual Studio Code now. So I'm just going to kind of hide I'm going to hide this. I'm going to bring up my Finder. There we are. And I'm just going to drag and drop this into Visual Studio Code like this. And what this does is it switches to ICE 1. It switches to ICE 1. Let's just not show that anymore. Okay, so there's ICE 1. ICE 1 is where I'm in right now. I'm no longer in the ICEs folder. I'm down one level. I'm inside of ICE 1. Okay, make sense? Yes. Yes, you can drag and drop from ICE 1 into there as well. But, I mean, just dragging and dropping is okay. You can also open. You can also go File, Open, right? And you can say like open folder, and then you can open up ICE 1. You can do that there too. There's lots of ways, more than one way to do everything. Okay, so now that I've got ICE 1 in there, I want to do an npm install. Well, we can also do a yarn install, because remember it has a package.json file. Here's my package.json file right here. The package.json file of a node project, what it works like. And again, here's some assumptions for you guys. My assumption is you've done some node, right? Or you've kind of looked at node before. Yes? You have done any node? Has anyone done any node? You guys have done node before? No? Okay, then the assumption is wrong. Let me tell you about everything. How about that? So the folder structure that I got was from the Express generator. That's what I got. And I got a bunch of things. I got a bin folder. I got a public folder with a bunch of stuff inside. I got a routes folder. And I got a views folder, and I got an app.js folder, and I also got a package.json folder. Those are the things that I got. Okay, package.json file, actually. All right, so what I want to do now is the package.json file is a special file that's in all node projects. And what it does is it identifies to the project all the packages that I need to download, right? So I need to download, these dependencies. Cookie parser, debug, EJS, Express, HTTP errors, and Morgan. All right. So all of this stuff are dependencies. Node.js, think about it as your platform for your, like if I was going to do stuff with Apache, MySQL, and PHP, think about Node.js like Apache. It's like our server, okay, if you will, right? Express adds on top of EJS, on top of Node.js, it adds functionality in terms of middleware functions and other things that allow us to do more things, okay? But Node.js, actually there's a lot of things you can do with Node.js, okay? Here what we have is, we have a structure, a package.json. It's a JSON structure. So it has a curly brace at the top, a curly brace at the bottom. This is the beginning. And each of these things in quotation marks are properties of the JSON file. That's what they are. And here's the name of the project, ICE 1, the version. Right now it's 0. Is it private or not? It's true. Right? Any starting scripts, so in other words, it'll run node, right? Dependencies, cookie parser, debug, EJS, Express, HTTP errors, and Morgan, those are all dependencies, and they have a certain version. Okay, that's what they have. They have a certain version involved. So the next step for us is, let's bring up our terminal again. Let's bring up our terminal again, and let us install all those things. And the way to do that is we used yarn. Let's do a yarn install. Let's do a yarn install. There we go. There's yarn install. What it did was it actually created a node modules folder. Look at that. Here's this node modules folder. So when we did an install, what we told Node to do is go out and grab all of these dependencies, these packages, and install them here so we can use them in our code. Again, maybe I've gone a little bit too fast, making some assumptions that were wrong. Let's go back to nodejs.org to explain a little bit about what Node.js is. So back in the day, right, we had PHP. That's what we had. That's all we had for our backend. And back in 2008, right, there was a big revolution. Chrome got the V8 engine. It became faster. And there was a notion among developers that, hey, there's a lot of languages here we have to know. We have to know Apache, how to program with Apache. We have to know PHP. We have to know JavaScript. We have to know query language to do MySQL. We have to know CSS. We have to know HTML. There's so many things to know on web, the kind of the web platform. It's a lot, right? Isn't there some way we can simplify some of this stuff? Maybe instead of using PHP on the back end, is there a way of using JavaScript? And so out of that notion, Node.js was born. Instead of using PHP on the back end, we can use Node, which is JavaScript. That's what it is, okay? So JavaScript everywhere, like what it says here. And then instead of using MySQL, we can use MongoDB. And MongoDB is also JavaScript-like. It uses a type of JSON for its data. That's what it does, okay? So it's very interesting, the way this works out. And we're going to be talking more about JavaScript and TypeScript next week and a little bit more of Node. But for today, we want to make our little Node server run. Okay, that's what we're going to do. So Node is the basis. And if you actually look at the docs, Node comes with a bunch of modules built in. It has things like file system modules. If I want to manipulate the file system by itself, I have something called a file system module, right? It has built-in modules, but you have to activate them. And we do that by requiring them or importing them. Those are the two ways we do it, okay? So what we want to do instead of that is we're going to use Express. And if we go back to the Express website, expressjs.com, Express is a web framework that's on top of Node. That's what we're doing right now. And we've used the Express generator. That's what we've done so far. And the Express generator, if we go back to Visual Studio Code, has given us all these files. That's what it's done. Package.json tells us we need all of these packages. These packages are third-party packages that we've downloaded and installed inside of our application. That's what we've done, okay? Now, things to not do. We don't want to put Node modules with thousands of files. That's what they are. There's thousands of files in here. We never want to put Node modules up on GitHub. It's just too big. So we want to make something called a gitignore file, right? And we want to put it inside of ICE1. So ICE1, at the root of ICE1, which is somewhere in here, okay, we're going to create a gitignore file. The way to create files is there's a little plus button here in Visual Studio Code, and we can make a new file, and we're going to call it .gitignore. There it is. There's .gitignore. The only thing that we want to ignore right now is Node modules, right? And what this does is we're saying that, hey, listen, when I'm, this is just my Copilot working. When Node modules, if I put this up on GitHub, I want you to ignore Node modules. Otherwise, it's going to put all the Node modules on GitHub. Okay, let's do the next part. So now that I've got this, let's run it. Let's see if we can actually run this thing. The way to run this thing by itself is down here. We can actually just do a nodemon, issue a nodemon command. We downloaded and installed nodemon. We can just type nodemon here. Right? Now I have to be in the ICE1 folder to do this. So if I type nodemon, it runs and it says, wait, there's a new version available. It says the latest version is 3.01, right? Or the current version is 3.01, but the latest version is 3.10. Wait a minute. Why is that? Let's take a look here and take a look at something. So what version of Node am I running? Right? 20.2.0, wait a minute. I thought we updated that. NVM list. Yeah, 20.2.0 is being used here, right? Not 22.1.0, which is I want to use. How about I use that? Okay, how do I do that again? NVM use 22.1.0. And then it says now using 22.1.0. But the problem with that is I installed all those things. If I do nodemon, it's going to go like, maybe it doesn't know what nodemon is. I don't know. Here it does. So nodemon, what it does was, it's going to launch, and it's waiting for me to launch things on localhost. It's waiting for me to launch things on localhost. So now if I go to the Chrome for here, right, and if I just type in localhost 3000, we get this. So localhost 3000, localhost is a alias for 127.0.0.1, right? And 3000 is the port we're using with Node.js, right? And what's happening is we're running a little server on port 3000, and when nodemon is running, it activates the server, and any changes, we just regenerate the server. Okay, so questions. Are you able to do this? What was that? Run it again? Sure. How about you? Why'd you say no? What's the problem? Did you do Express Generator? Did you install an Express Generator? Okay. So, can you do anything? Can you do nodemon? Because remember, if I go back to, so here's iTerm, right? iTerm, I did all my installations here, right? But inside of my Visual Studio Code, right, notice that, here, I'll Control C that, right? And let me show you this again. So first, I did a yarn install. After I did my Express, right? So I was, I'll do it from the very beginning. How about that? Just to show you guys one more time. We still have some time. So I'm just going to clock out of here for a second. And I'm just going to go and just close it down. And one more time, I'll do the same thing from the top here, okay? Let's suppose you just have your ISIS folder, okay? So here's your ISIS folder. Okay, in your ISIS folder, you ICE 1. That's what you have, right? But let's suppose instead of having ICE 1, we're going to delete ICE 1 and start over one more time. So here, I'll move this to trash. No more ICE 1, okay? From the beginning. I want to make ICE 1, and I want to do that inside VS Code. So I'm going to go back to VS Code. It's not going to find ICE 1. And I'm going to pull in ICEs like I did last time. Okay, this is the first thing I did. So step 1, pull in ICEs. Then open up your command prompt, right? Or your terminal. And inside of your terminal, we're going to do Express. So again, for Express to work, you have to install Express Generator. It means you have to do an npm install express-generator, right? -G for global. That's what you have to do. You have to issue this command. If you don't issue this command, Express Generator will never work. And the other thing to check is, do you have Node installed? Like, for example, can you do Node ---- version? Can you do that? And look, it says 20.2.0 again. Why does it say this? Well, because the version of Node that I'm using here, let me talk about this. If I do mvm use, 22.1.0, right? It'll use it for this session, this one right here. Okay, so if I do Node ---- version, you can see 22.1.0 is good. And I can also do an npm ---- version too, right? 10.7.0. Can you do that in your terminal inside of Visual Studio Code? Yes? Good. So now let's do an npm install express-generator. Let's do that -G. And press enter. And then what it'll do is it'll install Express inside there. Okay? npm install express generator -G. And for the people online who are watching, bear with me. I'm just trying to make sure everyone's on the same page. Did it work? npm install express-generator -G. Yes? What's the errors? Let's see. Okay, let's see if I can do it with sudo do sudo. I shouldn't have to do sudo. Sudo npm install express -generator -g, and you have to log in with your password. Sometimes we have to do that. So it looks like either somehow Homebrew is not working properly on your command line inside of the VS Code. VS Code is funny because it has its own terminal, right? Like for example, like I said, if I go back to terminal, and if I go and I say nvm list, right? It says, look, 20.2.0 is the one that's being used, right? Even though I keep saying nvm, use 22.1.0, right? It's funky like this. It says now using it, right? And then when I do an nvm list, right, you can see that even though I'm using that, the default is not 22.1.0, it's 20.2.0, right? So how do I escape from this? If I exit the terminal and go back, right, this is an issue, right, that we just found. And if I do an nvm list, again, you can see 20.2.0 is back, right? That's the default. And we're going to fix this. It even says default is 20.2.0, right? And so we can search for this. If I do an nvm help, right, and then it talks about how to install, it talks about how to use the latest version of Node, right? And I want to use, and how do I do default? Like, we can actually look it up. NVM, we're using it, but this version is staying the same. We'll figure this out. And I'll have a fix for this the next time around. Probably it's not being saved somewhere in the NVMRC. I bet you. Where we can have to modify a file. This is on the Mac side to make it work. But either way, temporarily, let's see what it says here. I'm going to make this wider so we can see what these things say. It says, after installing, set the default alias to the version specified. Okay. So nvm default alias. So I just want to make sure that I got this right. I don't want to time out here, guys. I want to make sure you guys have everything you need for your in-class exercise. So version. Exec. Here it is. We have to use that. We have to run that. Here it is. So default. Name, version, alias. So alias, name, version. After installing, set the alias specified to the version specified. Same as nvm. Same as nvm alias name. After installing, set the default alias to the version specified. Same as nvm alias default version. Okay. So we're going to do that. So nvm alias default, and version is 22.1.0. nvm alias default 22.1.0. Okay, so if I do clear, and if I do nvm list, then the default is 22.1.0. That's awesome. And then if I do nvm use 22.1.0, maybe it'll stay. nvm list, let's take a look. Okay, and let's exit and try it again. And I'm just curious because it should change. And if not, I'll figure out the fix for this. Yep, that's the one, 22.1.0. That's how you do it. So I had to set it as an alias. I set it as default. All right, so that's good. So that means that I have to close down this terminal and sometimes close down Visual Studio Code just for a second, because Visual Studio Code has its own internal terminal. And if I restart it, maybe then, if I do an nvm list, yeah, it's good now. So I can say node -- version, and we're good to go. Okay, good. So what I want to do is again, I want to drag and drop in ICEs. ICE is just a folder that's empty right now, right? So this is the part that you need to do with me. So I drag and drop this in. There we go. And if I pull up my terminal window, this is what I did last time. I did a express, right? And then I did a -E for EJS, and then the name of the folder, ICE1. And what this did is it created the ICE1 folder and popped in all this stuff. Right, that's what it did. That's the scaffold that we just made. So we made all these extra files and stuff, and we did it by using this option. That's what we did. Okay? And once we have that done, right, once we've done this, then I can go back into my Finder and drag and drop ICE1 in here, right? And now I'm focused on ICE1, right? What I want to do in ICE1 is I want to add in a .gitignore file. Please do this with me. Gitignore. A .gitignore file. And the .gitignore file is going to have node modules inside of it. Node modules, the reason why we need to have that is because we're telling Git that we want to ignore that folder. We don't want to put that up on GitHub. Anything we put inside the gitignore folder gets ignored. It doesn't get added, right? Next, let's run it. Let's try this out. So the way we try it is nodemon. Now, in order for you to have nodemon working, you have to do the same thing. You have to say something like, well, first actually, let's yarn install. Let's do a yarn install, right? A yarn install, you have to have yarn working on your machine. So you may have to do sudo, npm install yarn -g, like we did earlier. And what yarn does is it installed node modules. It installed these files, right? Node modules got installed. That's yarn install, right? And I'm using yarn as a quicker package manager than npm. And again, you'll see that it's going to work out for us in the beginning. This is the first time. Are you good? Good, good, good. Now, let's do nodemon. And when we do nodemon, it's going to start the project. This is what's going to happen. So what it's doing, you can't see it, but in the background, it's actually started. It's running a little command. This is the command, node./bin www. This makes no sense for us. We're going to modify this, okay, given the time we have. And but if we go to Chrome, if I go to Chrome now and try it out and try and go in localhost 3000, just type in localhost 3000, you should get Express. So again, going back to the people online, are you with me, my friends? Yes or no? If you're not with me, you're good? You have an issue again? You have to do an npm install, sudo npm install, do all that stuff. If you don't do that, there's no nodemon. Let's see. How about the people online? Come on, guys. You have to respond or else I can't help you. All right. So sudo npm install nodemon -g. Good. Now I should be able just to do, and let's do a, well, you got node modules there. Let's see what else you have in your ICEs. Yeah. Oh no, but you only have, where's the other stuff? Where's your Express? You're missing stuff, man. Here, let's take a look at your Finder. See what we see. Inside of ICEs, you have nothing.
Yeah.
So let's get rid of this. Delete. Move to trash. 1 second, guys. Yes. Oh, I see why. It's because you've got it open in Visual Studio. Let's close down Visual Studio for a second and do that. Let's try this again. Delete or move to trash. This operation can't be completed because no modules needs to be downloaded. What? Error. Move to trash. What's this button?
It's for finger.
Oh, for finger, yeah. How about this one? Yarn lock. Move to trash. That works. There's nothing in there. All right, well, we're going to make, let's pull up Visual Studio Code again. You guys aren't responding online. That's not good, guys. I mean, you guys can watch if you want, but being active is much better. So let's do a control backtick. There we go. Oh, you got there's your terminal and your problems. We don't care about that, we just care about this. So we're going to say, so can we do NodeMon? We can. Can we do express? So express minus E plus x size 1. There we go. And now it worked. So now, we don't care about this anymore. Now, we should be able to do, oh wait, where is this pointing? Where is this finder? Where did this go? This went into your MacBook Air. All right.
Like in desktop.
That's bad. So sorry, it went to the wrong place. It went to
in desktop. Is Georgian.
Mm,
M4
no, that's not where it is. This is under U MacBook Air. That's where it went. So let's make, remove directory minus R ICE1. So CD ICE1. One sec, guys. I'm just fixing a problem here. Remove app.js. Remove package.json. Remove, I'm going to say remove public minus R. Can we do that? Minus R, no such file directly. Remove, we have to do it minus RF maybe? RF, public. Legal option, minus F, RM, minus F, unlink. We need to go into this directory, wherever this is. This is your Patel's MacBook Air. This is in your main root. That's like, let me see if you can show it. Finder properties, settings. And we want to see hard disks. That's what I'm seeing. That's what we want to show. And where is your hard drive? That's your desktop, that's shared. Okay, stick around after, but we're going to make it so that it goes into ICES. So inside of ICES, we have to drag and drop this here. There we go. And now let's try that again. So we'll say express minus E, and then the folder, ICE1. Now that'll create ICE1 for you, right? And now we're going to go into ICES. We're going to go ICE1 and pull that in. And then under ICE1, we're going to make a new folder called gitignore. Gitignore. We're going to put node modules in there. Right, save. And then here, we'll put in yarn install. There's yarn, so it'll install everything, and then we can just do nodemon, and then it's going to run. And if we go back to, Safari or Finder, it doesn't matter. Our, here, let's put in, make a new one. We'll call this localhost 3000, then.
Express welcome there. Sir,
Yeah.
I have a problem with how to, I'm using Make first time. So I'm recently I purchased it. So I don't know how to show the hard drive on front of this in Finder.
How to do what in front of it?
We have to property Patel Manan. We find it, but we can't find it.
Oh, you mean you want to find two fingers? You want to find what properties you want to do?
No. It's we are finding hard drive in that place.
Yeah, or hard drive. You want to find the hard drive. Yeah. So stick around. I'll help you with it. Okay. I got to finish this off, right? Because we're at 140 right now, and I want to make sure we're done. All right. So no one's everyone's perfect online, as far as I know, because no one's responding. So let's continue. So now that we've got this, we've seen that we can do Express Generator, and the way we did this, again, like I said, was we were in Visual Studio Code, we ran NodeMon, right? And what NodeMon did was it looks inside of views, and it looks inside of your index.ejs. This is the view, and then what it does is it generates this page. That's what it does. It looks like HTML, but it's not quite finished HTML, right? It also has something called a route, right? And the route, the routes do is it looks inside of your index.js, and then it says where you're going to use a router.get, and when we're putting in the regular path, that's what this is. This is part of building an API, right? It's going to say basically, okay, well, we're going to run a function that renders the index template, that's what this is, and we're going to pass in an object, that's what this part is, with the title of Express. So what this means is, if I go to here, and if I just put in a slash just by itself, it takes us here to 3000. This is the default route. If you don't put anything else, there's no more pathing, it's 3000. This is your default routing. And what it does is, if I go back to this, my routes folder under the ICE folder, and you look at the index route, then the only route that we've defined is the default route. This is the default home page, right? And then what it does is it renders basically what it does is it creates the page for you, right? That's what it does. And it looks at the index template. That's what this does. The index template is, well, it's right here, index.ejs. That's the index template. And notice where it has this little part right here. This part is EJS injecting the object. So EJS has special syntax, less than percent and percent greater than basically says, hey, I want to inject something here. That's what EJS does. So when we pass in the object from the routes, we're passing in this title object, right? What happens is EJS injects it right here and right here. So notice when I go back to Chrome, I'm using Chrome on Mac, right? Then the title is also Express. See, that's the title. And also here is Express. So let's try this out. Let's see if we can modify this really quickly by going back to Visual Studio Code and changing what's inside the route. So here's my route. And I want to change this, instead of it saying Express, put your name. I'm going to put Tom. That's my name, right? So I'm going to, command save, right? So I save this up. Now when I save, the beautiful thing is, because I'm running NodeMon, it just restarted the server. I want you to think of this as well. Whenever we create a server in Node, what we're doing is we're creating an object, right? That object can't change. So if I've created the object, I configured it, right? And I configured it before with Express. If I change it, if I want to change it, I have to recreate the object. In order for me to recreate the object, I need to reboot the server, restart the server, which is what NodeMon does automatically for you. Otherwise, you have to do it manually yourself. And that's why we use NodeMon. However, let's suppose I wanted to do it manually. How do I do this manually instead of using NodeMon? Well, I can do it like this. I can just say, just like what NodeMon did, in the package.json file, which is your manifest, that's really what it is. Let me bring this down a little bit so you can see it. You have this start script. Take a look at this, right? So you could do it differently. Instead of running NodeMon, you could say something like node run start. And then what that'll do is npm run start. Let's try that out. There we go. And then what this does is it runs the start script, right? There's the start script. So if I go back to localhost 3000 and refresh, right now it says Tom, and so does this, okay? But if I change this, let me show you if I change it what happens. If I change this back to something else, let's suppose I go back to my route right here, and I change this back to something else, like let's say Georgian, okay? And I press save. Now, I'm not using NodeMon anymore. I'm using npm start. Will it change? No. Because look, I've just saved something and notice nothing happened, nothing changed, right? So if I go back to Chrome and I expect the change to happen, if I refresh, we're expecting Georgian to be here, but it's not going to happen because I need to restart the server, my friends. And the only way that can happen is if I do it manually. I have to stop it by Control-C and then issue that command again, npm start again. That's a really ugly way of doing it, right? Instead of this, we don't have to do this way. We can just use nodemon, and nodemon automatically restarts for us, right? So now going back to Google Chrome, if I refresh, it's going to say Georgian, right? That's one property of Node. Once we create Node, and we're going to go into more of what this is all about next week, right? But today, for in-class exercise 1, because I want you guys to get this done, right? Let's finish this off. So now that we have our Node server running, we want to put this up on GitHub. And I'm going to go back to Visual Studio Code. I'm going to stop nodemon, Control-C to stop. I'm going to clear it up. And now I'm going to push this to GitHub. First, I want to add a new commit. And the way this works is I'm going to say git add dot, git commit -m, and I'm going to say something like added ICE1 project files, which is what I did, ICE1 project files, okay? Again, if you're not great with command line, you can always do this with a tool, okay? If you don't like this somehow. Again, I urge you to learn how to do this because I think it's good to learn, but it's up to you, okay? And now that I've done that, by the way, you can always zip back to all your commands by using your arrow key. You can see all the commands I did, right? These are all the commands. So the last ones I did were git commit -m added ICE project files. That's what I did, okay? But first I did a git add dot. Git add dot adds everything, and then I did this, okay? Now that I've done that, I need to make a repository. Let's do that together. So I'm going to go up to GitHub, and my GitHub repository is on Georgian College. I own the Georgian College organization. I own the organization for GitHub. I also own Centennial. I also own, a bunch of other ones. Why? I just created them first before anybody else. I don't own Georgian College. I own the GitHub repository for Georgian College. Hi.
Hello? Is this on 1002?
No.
No?
Yeah, we're still in 1004. We're not quite done.
Okay.
Thank you. All right, so the next part is we need to make a repository. So I'm going to go to plus. I'm going to make a new repository here. And I'm going to do one not on me, but I'm going to do it on Georgian College. This is where you're going to see my repository. And here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to give it a repository name. And the repository name, and this will be the same for you when you make a brand new repository. I'm going to call it, again, MDEV1004-M2024. That's summer 2024. And then ISIS, right? That's the repository I want to make. Now notice mine it says private here. I want you to keep it private. I want you to keep yours private, okay? That's important. Okay, I'm going to press enter. I'm not going to do anything differently. And you're going to see some steering instructions here. Look, guys, you're going to see all these steering instructions, right? I want you to use these last 3 lines of code here to connect everything, right? How you doing?
Good, you?
Just need 10 minutes.
Okay.
Thanks. So I want to copy these ones right here, right? And once I've copied them, right, I want to go back into Xcode. I want to go back into VS Code, right? And I want to right-click. I want to right-click here and paste. And when I do that, you're going to see it paste these last 3 lines of code in. There we go. Paste these last 3 lines of code in, right? And what this does is it actually connected and pushed to my repository. So if I go back to here and if I refresh now, you're going to see that I have ICE1. And that's how your ICES folder should look like. It's private. Last thing before we go, I want you to go to settings and I want you to add me as a collaborator. All right, so on the left here, you're going to see that there's a collaborators and teams. You're going to use your tool, right? You're going to use your tool here, almost done. You're going to use your tool here, and you're going to make sure You use your authenticator app, because you should have an authenticator app for this one. And you're going to add me as people, right? So the way to find me is you can put my last name at hotmail.com. I put it inside of your in-class exercise 1, or you can just put in my last name by itself. You'll see that there's one person that looks like me, all right? And that's the one you want to add, this guy, all right? Once you add that, I'll get notified, and you're good to go for in-class exercise 1. Remember, for in-class exercise 1, you need 2 things: a working GitHub link and a YouTube video. A link to your YouTube video. For YouTube, I recommend OBS Studio, all right? That's what I recommend you download and install and use, okay? It cannot be an MP4. If you give me an MP4 or something else, 0. It's got to be YouTube link, okay? And that's it for me, guys. Again, you can book time with me online. You can connect with me on Discord. I hope you do. Otherwise, I'll see you guys next week. Good luck on in-class exercise 1. Any questions before we go?
So for the YouTube video that you mentioned, or like what do we have to record for that?
You record
Showing
that
our
everything
VS
is
Code?
working like I've told you that it's working. All you say is, "Hi, Tom, this is so-and-so, and I'm making this video for in-class exercise 1, and here you can see that I've done exactly what you said, what you did, which is I've run NodeMon, and here's my Express working here in the browser, and everything is
Okay,
good. Thanks
got
so
it.
much, sir. Bye-bye. 1 minute is what I want you
Thank
to
you,
listen
sir.
to. Okay?
Yeah.
And that's it for me, guys. Good luck. Connect with me on Discord. Book time with me if you need to. I'm available during the week. I'll see you guys next week. Thank you. I'll stop recording.